with the movie I, Robot, there are these robots that this technology company is like promoting and selling to them, and they look very much like the robots Tesla just announced.
They do.
And it's kind of creepy because the same thing, like the commercial they have in the movie I, Robot is crazy similar to the commercial they have that Tesla just released.
People are treating it like it's a fully operational self-driving car when it's not. Like the people fall asleep, and you can't do that. We're not there yet. Will we be there? Possibly, probably.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's very scary that people are doing that, but also scary that Elon is taking a little page from Will Smith's movie. What's up, Grandma? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm David, and today I have a very special guest.
Robert, Nerd Prime, your dad.
Yep, that's true. And today we're going to be talking about movies that predicted future technology. So, Dad, you grew up in the 80s, so you grew up with landlines, and you grew up with all the things we see in quote-unquote movies that are old now. Did you ever expect us to go in a world where we would have all these this technology that looks like something from Back to the Future 2?
Well, I still don't think we have the technology of Back to the Future 2, but we're getting there. For me, I've always been kind of a realist, so I've always been like, I don't know if I think that's going to turn out that way, but I am surprised in some ways. I'm like, okay, I don't think that's ever going to happen, and then there's other things that I'm really surprised that it actually did turn out that way. So just, it's just super interesting. They say that my generation is one of the is the generation that knows what life was like before the internet and then life after. So I remember going into the librarians, taking us into the library and showing us this thing called the internet. And we, they had talked about it. We had heard about this thing called the internet, but my dad was like, I wouldn't say as soon as you were able to get it, but probably an early adopter because he's very tech savvy. So the internet, so I know what it was, but when they took us into the library and they started having us do like, you can do Google searches, or it wasn't Google at that time, it was, whatever the web server was at that time. But you could do that, and so it's just interesting that I remember pre-internet, and I also know as soon as it rolled out and how it's just lit the world on fire afterwards.
Yeah, true. And so you saw all these movies predict the future. One of them that came out in 2004, so you were right out of high school, right?
No, you're right.
2004. Yeah. You were right out of high school.
Yeah.
Was a movie
I graduated in 2003.
Yeah.
So 2004 is when it came out,
was a movie called I, Robot.
Yeah.
And Dad, would you?
Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith, I, Robot.
That didn't age well.
No, that did not age well at all. Cut to the clip.
Oh, wow!
What is the synopsis or plot of I, Robot?
So I, Robot, I mean, it's very much... there's just a few different storylines that most sci-fi shows and movies use. And it's basically they create an AI, and it's super helpful at first, but then as it goes, it learns more and more about humanity, and it realizes that to accomplish its objective of protecting humanity, it has to save humanity from itself, because we are its biggest threat. So, but in doing so, it takes away our freedom.
Yeah.
And so, we are very much, we want our freedom. But I think it's just interesting because I think that we start to lose our freedom because of convenience. We want convenience so badly that we're willing to sacrifice freedom. And so I think that movie kind of shows that.
Yeah, totally. And with the movie I, Robot, there are these robots that this technology company is like promoting and selling to them, and they look very much like the robots Tesla just announced.
They do.
And it's kind of creepy because the same thing, like the commercial they have in the movie I, Robot is crazy similar to the commercial they have that Tesla just released. They're like, it can walk your dog, it can water your plants, it can babysit your kids. And it's like, I don't know if I want them to do any of that, It's like so creepy because like they literally, Elon was like, let's just copy and paste this, and they just put it in there and we're good,
Well, I don't know if it's like a copy and paste thing where like Elon just loves those movies, and it's not just Elon. And you're going to talk about this, I think, a little bit later about other ones that are similar. But I think it's just part of our collective psyche. Like we grew up watching these movies, and we've all been kind of, I wouldn't say trained, but trained or visually stimulated by Hollywood, who had these approaches to visually how this was going to look. And so I think some of it's like, yeah, that would be funny, let's make it look like that.
Yeah.
But I think in some cases it's just part of our collective consciousness. So when they're designing it, it is affecting their design choices because that's what they remember seeing, even if it's subconsciously.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. With these robots, they're very human-like. They kind of look like would you say they would kind of look like a human, the Tesla robots?
The new Tesla one, the way they did the chest piece actually looks very it's like a mannequin almost, and so it doesn't have a face, but it does have that, and they've chosen a voice that sounds very natural and human like. So I saw a clip of them, like one of these robots walking around talking with people, and they're holding a conversation. So it was amazing, but it's also like, all right, have we factored in how this could go wrong?
Yeah.
Or are we so? It's kind of like, it reminds me of Jurassic Park. I think it was Dr. Ian Malcolm, where he was like, are we basically something to the effect of, are we so busy pursuing what we can do that we haven't thought about what we should do?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's like, should we do this? We're playing God here.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's for me, that's a concern too. Is like, are we really thinking about where this is going to lead?
Yeah. And when Tesla announced the Tesla robots, that wasn't the only thing he announced. That was very similar to the movie I Am Robot. He also announced the Tesla van. It was called the Robo Van.
The People Mover, yeah.
It's the People Mover, and there is a van that is very similar to the Tesla one in the film I Am Robot, and it carries people, it carries robots, and it just unloads all the robots. Well, they're very close. The color's a little bit different.
The Tesla one looks better.
Yeah, no doubt. Elon said that this can hold anywhere from 6 to 12 people, and I think it's crazy that Elon's like, all right, we have robots like I Am Robot. Let's throw in a van, And then he's like, let's throw in a self-driving cyber cab. And so we're getting our own Tesla taxi, basically. And it's kind of weird because we saw one very similar to that in the movie I Am Robot.
I would say that the one in I, Robot does look better because it's an Audi or Audi, however you want to say it. And that we've seen in other movies, or at least a similar model. I think it was in Iron Man. So I think at that point it was more of a concept car that they were using. But they've actually used aspects. I'm not a car guy, but I've seen that they've used aspects of that car in super high-end Audis.
Really?
And,
wow.
So the Tesla one looks all right, but the one in iRobot is pretty sweet.
Yeah. And one thing that's very similar is that with the Tesla, the Tesla Cybercab, it's not going to have a steering wheel or pedals.
Nope, don't like that.
That creeps you out?
It doesn't creep me out. I just don't like the concept of, I guess very similar to the iRobot movie, Will Smith wants to have control, and it's always like, stop taking control of the car, but he's like, I want to take control.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that we start to lose something when it just becomes a taxi service.
Yeah.
Because when we're kids, especially for boys, girls too, but from my experience, is just your first rite of passage of freedom is a bicycle, and then it becomes a car.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and you have to study, and you have to learn how to drive and all that. And so, it kind of, I think it loses something. And a big part of being an American is car culture, whether it be, muscle cars are my dad and my father-in-law, your grandpa's.
Yeah.
That's they talk about the cars they used to have, and when they see them now, they're like, oh, look at that car. I remember this, yeah.
I had a pink slip of that,
Yeah, paint racing for pinks.
Yeah.
So, that's just a big part of it, and I think we lose that with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that is true. And then we see in the iRobot movie, they have these, not Tesla exactly, but these cabs that have no pedals, have no steering wheel, but Will Smith's like, hey, I want I want control, like you said. Yeah. And I think that would be better to have that option.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and... Because, like, now there's cars, like your grandparents' Honda CR-V, I was driving it, and when you put it on cruise control, it will gauge and, like, slow down and speed up, but you're still setting the parameters. Mm-hmm. But having a car, like, I still think we're a ways away from having a car that is so dependable that you could, like, fall asleep. You know what I mean? And be okay with it. I know people do. They're not supposed to. But I remember as a kid, though, that was one of the things we used to think about was, like, how will they do that? Because we thought, well, at some point they've got to have self-driving cars. But how? And we thought maybe there was going to be, like, a magnetic rail.
Oh, wow.
And it would be on the ground, and it would, like, follow the rail, and then it would turn onto the next rail, whatever. We didn't think that, like, it would have so much technology and AI. I mean, AI was, like, totally science fiction.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah. Anyway, I thought that's how it was going to go. But to see one that has cameras all around it, and it's making decisions in real time, I mean, that was, like, so science fiction at the time.
And even with the Teslas, people are like, oh, it's fully, like, you can fully drive. You have to keep your eyes on the road because just in case. Like, if you look away, it will start warning you, like, hey, you need to start looking now because I'm still I'm the co-pilot and you're the pilot,
Yeah.
So it's telling you, like, you got to be careful,
Well, people are treating it like it's a fully operational self-driving car when it's not. Like, the people fall asleep, and you can't do that. We're not there yet. Will we be there? Possibly, probably.
Yeah.
But we're not yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very scary that people are doing that, but also scary that Elon is taking a little page from Will Smith's movie. And I think it's crazy because when I was working on this episode, my little sister, his daughter, our camera operator, she was looking at the Tesla robots, and she was like, that looks like the robots from Mitchell's vs. Machines. And that is a straight to Netflix movie created by Chris and
I remember that.
Chris and Philip Lord Miller or something like that.
Oh, the guys from Spider-Verse?
Yeah. They're kind of in trouble right now. We won't get into that right now. But they created that movie, and the design of their robots that take over the world in that movie look very similar to the ones that Tesla made. Would you agree?
Yeah, so I think that the Tesla ones actually look like a mix between that and iRobot.
Okay.
Because the Square is just definitely not what Elon's going for. It's just not sexy, and Elon likes things to look like very
clean.
Okay, I was gonna say he likes them to look clean and smooth and stuff until he takes the Cybertruck, which is like couldn't get more like octagonal or whatever.
Which comment down below if you like the Cybertruck. I'm like the only one that loves it in my family.
So there are aspects of the Cybertruck that I like, and I like some of the interior. I think it looks really neat. But when it comes to, I've seen it tested, and it just does not test that well as far as against traditional trucks. Like the hitch just snaps right off, and I'm sure we'll probably get haters for that. But it's just from what I've seen.
Yeah.
But I don't have one. I don't hate it. I'm kind of actually I saw one this morning.
Did you actually?
Yeah, when I was driving up to go out of town for work, I saw one, and they had done it in a red wrap. It was like a candy apple, but it was almost like a matte candy apple red. So I was like, I don't like that as much, but it was all right. At least it wasn't like bright red.
Yeah, true. But when this robot, the Tesla robots, were announced, another company announced their line of robots they're working on called the Electronic Atlas Robot. And did I say that right?
Electric Atlas Robot.
Electric Atlas Robot. And the design of this robot looks very similar to a very underrated and very underappreciated movie that I love called Love and Monsters.
It's a good movie. It's fun. If you just want a good sit down and kind of veg out movie, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's great. Yeah. Dylan O'Brien, he's awesome.
Doesn't have a bunch of junk in it.
No. And it's a movie about monsters that attack the world, and so there were robots that were coming out that were going to be the next big thing. You heard of it? It sounds pretty familiar. And they were going to be the next big thing, but then these robots ate some of them, and so there's one left. So he finds it, And I'm telling you, the design of the robot for Love and Monsters looks very similar to the design that this robot just came out with. And it's kind of crazy because the robots in those movies weren't evil. And they were more of like educational.
They were helper robots, that kind of thing. And they actually were it was very comforting to him in that moment.
Yeah.
So I actually liked that because it wasn't like, oh no, more evil robots. It was these monsters that had mutated. The monsters didn't come from space. They were human.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, they were on Earth, but they just got mutated. And like the robots just got shredded by them.
Yeah, so. Which I love Love and Monsters. If you guys haven't seen that movie, go check it out. I think it's on Netflix. I think so. It blew up on Netflix.
Well, and then they moved it over to Hulu. It's kind of gotten moved around.
Yeah.
I remember. I would like to see a sequel. I don't want too many sequels, but I feel like they could actually do a good sequel on that one.
Yeah, no doubt. That's one of the movies I want a sequel, but I don't want them to ruin it.
Poor guy, he's always ending up in post-apocalyptic.
Dylan O'Brien? Oh, yeah. He's the post-apocalyptic boy, man. They want him for everything. But that wasn't the only movie that had some futuristic predictions that were right. A movie that you loved growing up was Minority Report?
Minority Report,
is that right? Could you tell us a little bit about that movie?
Yeah, so Minority Report's a little bit different. It's not so much about AI. It's about this future crime division trying to stop crime before it happens.
Yeah.
And so with this, but instead of just using an AI, they use these 3 precognitives. And so they basically have these dreams, and they're kind of almost like psychic, but they have these dreams, and they're able to basically jack into their head and keep them sedated. And when they have these dreams, they pop up on screens, and these police officers try to sift through all the information, find out who's going to get killed, who's going to kill him, and get there first and stop them. And then they put them under arrest, and they put these little things, I think they're called halos, on them, and basically just put them in like almost like a cryo sleep to where they just dream all the time. And so I guess it's actually a really horrific thing, they say in the movie. So and so they think that it's basically an infallible system. But Tom Cruise ends up being accused of one of these crimes.
Yeah, and that was one of the movies that actually showed the idea of a touchscreen, which we use touchscreens all the time now.
Yeah, we do.
We use them for our phones. We use them to swipe up. We use it for our iPads. Sometimes some of our TVs even have touchscreen abilities.
Yeah, some of them.
And it's crazy that Steven Spielberg, in a movie that was made in 2002? Three. They like.
Oh, actually, 2002.
Was it 2002?
Yeah.
They specifically were like, okay, we're gonna come up with this idea. It's gonna be wild, but then we have phones that do that because back then we only had flip phones, right? Would that be right?
I'm trying to think. Yeah. We didn't have. They were getting more into like you take your phone and you slide them out. They're called like sidekicks and stuff, so you can still type and stuff.
Yeah.
The screens were getting better, but nothing like this. I mean, the first iPhone, I don't remember. Maybe you can pop it up on the screen.
Yeah.
What year it came out?
Yeah.
But I remember. I think I was an adult when it came out. So.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. That was also another movie that they did facial recognition to get into places, which I was telling my dad that, and then he was like, yeah, well, you use that for your phone. And I was like, wait, what? And I like literally was looking, it looks at your face, takes a picture, and it's like, access granted. Yeah, it's like, it's so creepy.
Well, they also have the optic scans where on that movie, and so in that movie he gets his eyes taken out and gets an eye transplant. Yeah, so it's crazy because they're talking about that too. Yeah, it's brutal.
Do you think that's one way criminals are gonna like be able to get out if they like? I don't want to get gruesome. Switch eyeballs with people.
Or switch faces. Yeah.
Face off.
Face
off.
Face
off.
Face off. No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess that anytime there is, they'll have to get the technology for like medical technology good enough for like regular rich people to do it.
True.
And then it'll go to the black market. You know what I mean?
True.
But I don't think so.
So before we wrap up the episode, I got a question for you.
Okay.
What is one robot that you would want as your best friend?
Teddy Ruxpin.
He
He was my best friend when I was little, man.
Yeah?
Put the picture up there.
Okay.
Come dream with me tonight. That's Teddy Ruxpin. So, no, I do like, we were talking about it earlier, and Baymax is pretty awesome. So with that, I don't really need a robot as a best friend, but
Really?
because I already had one.
Yeah,
Teddy
true.
Ruxpin.
If I was gonna pick one, it would be Tide. Baymax is a great choice, but another one would be the robot from Lost in Space, the Danger Will Robertson robot. That's a good one because it can protect you. I would also, I would have to go with
But
like
he was also like a killer too. So
Yeah.
that's a little scary. Like
That
what if
is true.
His programming goes back or something. But
Yeah.
that was an awesome show.
No.
That show, I feel like that show will hold up well.
Oh yeah, go check it out. It's on Netflix, a Netflix original. I would recommend that. It's actually a pretty good show. So that or Iron Robot
Iron Robot.
as a best friend.
Who's Iron Robot again?
Iron
Giant.
Giant.
I was
Iron
gonna
Robot.
Say, is that what you meant? Iron Giant. Yeah.
Iron Giant.
Superman.
Yeah, I think Iron Giant would be a great best friend. The whole movie's about friendship, and
Well,
it's
okay. Well, we just watched Wild Robot.
oh,
Very similar.
that's a good one.
What's her name again?
Rose.
No.
Roz.
Thank you.
Thank you, camera
Camera
operator.
person.
Yeah,
Roz.
Roz. I said Rose. Roz. That's a good one. That's actually a pretty good one. So
She was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
She did a great job.
she was great, a great robot and mother. So yeah. But thank you guys so much. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, and see you later, Grandma.